Joe, we like days like this, don't we? We've opened a box off camera and we've had a little poke around in it. And what is in the box that we've received today?
Well, we've received an incredibly generous donation from Aurora Lighting. I'm sure everybody watching will have heard of Aurora Lighting. They're a very big lighting manufacturer. But we've not just received a gift of light fittings. What's special about pretty much everything that we can see in front of us here, Gaz?
Being the technical guy amongst the team, as we well know, yes, the bloke that can't find anything on his phone, we've been gifted not just standard lighting products and socket outlets, we've actually been gifted smart ones. So you're going to need to lead me on this a little bit. Is it the case that the lamps that can go in, say, back lamp holders, ceiling roses and pendants, downlighters and individual downlighters can now be controlled by what type of device?
So we should be able to get this hooked up so we can control it from a mobile phone. And really that's kind of just the start of what we can do here, because it's not just a matter of turning things on and off via a mobile phone. We can hook it all up so that we can create different lighting scenarios as well. We can also hook it up so that we've got switches that will produce different light effects. We've got lots and lots of things that we're going to be able to do here. So pretty much every single bit of kit that you can see on the bench in front of you has smart technology built in that will control the lighting circuits in various different ways. I am properly excited to see this hooked up and running.
I'm a little nervous. Okay, and we've got, as well as Aurora Lighting, we've actually got a gentleman that came in and does a massively inspirational speech for our learners, Stephen Hurrell.
The guy from Aurora Lighting, Stephen.
He came in and he spoke to our learners, and he gave a speech that was quite, I don't know, it motivated a lot of our learners. Do you agree with that?
Well, it was a little while ago now that he came in, but a lot of our full-time level 1 learners, who are not always the easiest kind of learners to engage in interest, but he held them captivated, didn't he? When he was talking, you could really tell that he'd gripped their imagination, and it was really, really, hopefully very beneficial to them. There's still lads who talk about it now. Yeah,
and with smart being a big part of their future, so if they're going to work in the electrical industry, they're going to be connected to smart.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it would be worth playing that interview. I've recorded that interview, that speech, that monologue that he produced for us. I think it's worth cutting to that now, even if it's only for our learners to revisit, because it was a speech that was quite impressive, I would suggest. Let's go to that next.
Okay, morning gents. Gary's asked me to come along today to try and give you guys a little bit of a sort of a career talk. I want to start by really taking this back to sort of something a bit more simple, and just really talk to you about my own personal sort of my background and where I've come from to sort of where I am today. So just like you guys, I've sat in this very same room, in these very same cubicles, okay, doing the same thing. I did my apprenticeship in Norwich, at Norwich College, and on that basis sort of I know exactly as it is. I relate to you guys very well, imagining myself back as a sort of 16, 17-year-old lad. There's no 18s here, are there? If I offended anyone first. Oh, sorry, you're on your own. Yeah, you can drink. So I relate back to you guys as 16, 17, okay, and where you are right now. But the important message from today, as I sort of tell you this story now over the next 10 or 15 minutes, is your understanding of the qualifications that you can achieve from this college and the end goal, the end result, okay? And I'll just share my story with you so you understand that, all right? So, okay, so I start back, back in '89, doing the 16th edition of this electrical industry and working my way through the qualifications, okay? And I had a very similar kind of sort of talk with various different sort of industry people that came in. And if I'm honest, I related to some of it, but not all of it, because at that moment in time, I could not imagine anything other than being consumed by what I had to do. I had to get in here and learn how to do a two-way circuit. I achieved that. The intermittent bit, by the way, killed me. I got there eventually. yeah. But my point is, we had to do all of that, right? So I was more focused on that, yeah? My own personal needs than some gentleman standing here telling me, you know, his journey and what he'd done. I could only block in so much. But as I look back now, I probably had made frames of reference to that conversation throughout my career, but I just didn't know it at the time, okay? So, yeah, we went through this process, and what I've learned along the way on my journey, as I'll share with you, is that, and I hope I'm not going to offend anybody in this room when I say this, okay, but the majority of you in here, okay, I would guess are going to be dyslexic, okay? Now, that's not an issue. Okay, that's not to say that we're bad in any way. Yeah, it's just that we're different. Okay, Richard Branson. Richard Branson's dyslexic. Hasn't made him a bad person, has it? It's made him incredibly wealthy. Okay, if you read his books, he's failed more times than he's succeeded, but he's made a lot of money along the way. Yeah, so that's not an issue. Okay, I'll be the first one to say, yeah, absolutely. I've got definitely some sort of processing issues that I have when I read something. I have to read things twice. Okay, I've got other colleagues who can read it first time and get it straight away. But that's irrelevant. It makes no difference. It's just that you just got to know how to get there. Okay, but absolutely, when it comes to understanding, okay, that piece of the work, yeah, contractors, whether they be builders, plumbers, electricians, it makes no difference, make the absolute best tradesmen, okay, if they have a degree of dyslexia, because they're able to put the creativity to that. Okay, so we talk about these fuse boards, okay, and this is a nice one. Mine was better, no doubt about it. Yeah, I would never have had all these different lengths. So mine would have been. You could have put a spirit level across mine. Yeah, but the important bit about that is the message I'm making is that the attention to detail, being creative, okay, plays a big part in the job that you've got. You're no different to a builder. Yeah, I just was walking in the college here, just seeing obviously the guys, you know, doing all their work next door in the booths. You know, a builder's going to want to make sure when he lays bricks, okay, that they're all going to be absolutely lined up. He's going to want to make sure that depending on the time of year, okay, he doesn't come back when the job's done and see all the salt and the white coming through on the brickwork. Okay, that to him is not a good job. It's no different to you guys. If you're clipping cable, you're going to want to make sure, okay, that the spacings on those clippings are identical to give yourself that sort of that real proud, you know, moment where you can go, do you know, I'm proud of that job. Yeah, that was one of mine. Yeah, and that was where I was at. I probably wasn't the quickest Sparky in the world. I can tell you one thing: I was the cleanest. Yes, for sure. I avoided every bit of dirt you can imagine. Yeah, and I used to get ribbed about that all the time. But I certainly made sure that I was very proud of the work that I'd done. Okay, so. Yeah, so along the way, along my career, I did my course, a bit like you guys, but it was back on the 16th edition then. I did part 1s, part 2, and I did my C course as well, which is sort of the advanced end of qualification, if you want to call it that. And I then went on and did 4 years, okay, 4 years on the tools. And I just could imagine myself doing something else, but staying qualified. I'd done that time. I was never going to want to throw that away. Yeah, I can't believe you did that again. Yeah. Therefore, I wanted to get to a point where I actually could use that qualification, okay, package it up, yeah, and go on and do the next thing. So the next thing for me was to sit in with electrical wholesalers and get involved in actually selling product. What better place to be than I'm now using that skill set to sit. I'm a 22-year-old boy then, man, sitting in front of a 42-year-old man, fully qualified, clearly got 20 years of experience to my 4, always going to be tricky, okay? But because you're qualified, it makes life a lot easier. And therefore, when he challenged me, okay, and I remember it really well. Does anyone know what discrimination is? Oh, Gary? You've trained them well, okay? Yeah. Okay. So I remember really, really well sitting in front of a guy in his little office. Okay, it's quite a cold day, you know, and I'm sort of fresh out of the blocks, wanting to sort of make an impression in this selling world now. Okay, and the contractor said to me, so Steve, he said, just describe to me your definition of discrimination. I was like, yes, I remember this. It was not too long ago, and I nailed it straight away. Yeah, and told him. At that point, he was chuffed. You could just see that he's thinking, you know, a young guy here, okay, he's invested his time, got qualified, understands obviously the industry, and therefore at that point, I just felt like I grew about another 6 inches, yeah, because I knew that all this skill that I'd gained was going to be useful for me in life, wherever life was going to take me. And then I spent a number of years within the electrical wholesaling world, and then went on to work and started breaking out of that and started to work in the manufacturing world, okay? So with the likes of sort of wiring accessories. And I worked for a wiring accessory company for a number of years. And then at the age of 30, okay, so bear in mind I came off the tools when I was 22. And then at the age of 30, we had this opportunity to set up another business. But I want to explain something to you along the way, yeah? Is that learning should never stop. If learning stops, okay, there's a chance in life, okay, that you're going to plateau, yeah? It's important to keep self-educating yourself. So going back to what I said to you earlier about, you know, understanding how you sort of go through and we read textbooks, we process, we do things all in different ways. I went on and then went to Bedford College, okay, which I believe Bedford College is linked to this college. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, okay. So I went on to Bedford College, and I went and put myself on a management course. Okay, and that management course, basically, you'll laugh at this now because you guys will do this for bread and butter, okay, but I went on and did word processing, Excel spreadsheets and stuff like that, because in the world that we were growing up in back in 96, 97, okay, clearly that was going to form my new life, my new world, yeah, is that I was going to put my tools down, if you like, and I was going to exchange my tools for a computer and start working on obviously the industry in a different way, and therefore I had to learn, and I had to fast track myself. So I put myself back into night school. That took me a further 2 years, and I sort of got this diploma in management, and we all went on from there. So that was great. And we then sort of, through that process, I decided this opportunity came along with my previous sort of business that I was working in. One of the family owners of that business, Andrew Johnson, who now ultimately owns the business that we have today called Aurora, made contact with me and said, look, Steve, I think we've got an opportunity here to set up a lighting company. And that was great because lighting was, trust me, back in 2000, most people's homes, my parents' house was a 4-foot batten in the kitchen, and we had pendant lights pretty much everywhere around the house. Yeah. To this day, it's very, very different, as you know. There is recessed downlighters everywhere. There is low-level LED. There is LED strip. Mood lighting plays a huge part, and obviously with that comes all sorts of different forms of lighting control, okay, which also is a very changing world and a changing industry, which I'll come on to in a second. So lighting now is not just a single one lighting point in a room, it's multiple connections in a room now to create different themes and different sort of ambient effects. So we decided to set up this lighting business called Aurora, and that was where my life changed, because back in 2000, I pretty much hadn't left Norwich. Yeah, like you guys probably, okay? My life was good. I got married at 24 years of age. We were cruising around, doing some nice things, growing up together, you know, no children at the time. And that was fantastic. But at 30 years of age, I had the opportunity to set this business up with Andrew Johnson, our partner, and grow this Aurora business, which meant jumping on planes and traveling the world and spending a lot of time on the other side of the world in Asia. So that was fantastic, because you can imagine you guys doing that now, okay? Suddenly you're cocooned in this world you live in right now, okay? And all of a sudden the world opens up, and the thought of getting on planes, you think, this is crazy. How did I get to this point? Yeah, I'm an electrician by trade. Only 10 years ago I was sitting in Norwich City College, you know, in a wooden booth, you know, and here we are. Life moves on quite quick. So so from that point of view, we then had this opportunity to grow a lighting business. And as I said to you earlier, lighting then was very traditionally static, okay? But things were changing. People wanted to take a batten down. People wanted to put downlighters into their home. They wanted to become a bit more decorative. The old days, I don't know if you've done this, but when you're creating your spacings in a room, you know, I used to typically sort of 600-800 off the walls, measure it round, nice and evenly spaced out. Sound familiar? Yeah, well, I wouldn't do that at all anymore. I push lights right up against walls. We scallop down walls. We light up surfaces. You know, you still get the indirect direct light, which bounces off walls back into the room. But it's all about how you create those moods. Yeah, and today's lighting allows you to do that, particularly obviously with traditional sort of incandescent lighting, which has moved into LED now. And that was fantastic. LED has now taken us right through to this present day. Okay. And you know, we're pretty much maxed out now. The efficiency of lighting is pretty much where it is, and the energy now is, although it's dropped over time. You know, you take a traditional sort of GU10 lamp as a good example. It started off at sort of 10-12 watts. Now it's really much round about sort of 5, giving you around about sort of 500 lumens, which is absolutely more than ample that you need in a domestic dwelling at sort of 2.5 meter ceiling heights. So yeah, we're in a good space now in terms of the energy, and the technology is settled. Okay, there's no doubt about it. But the most exciting part of the next sort of chapter of where you guys sit and where we sit as a business is that we decided back in 2015 to move into the smart space. Have any of you heard of Hive? Who's got Hive? Echo. yeah. Brilliant, okay. Has anybody got at home the Echo Dots? The Google Homes, okay? A nice full... share of hands, doesn't surprise me, okay? For your generation, absolutely right, get it, you guys are growing up in this space. Did a presentation not so long back to a group of industry men of my sort of age, okay, asked the same question. None of them had Hive, none of them had any form of voice activation because they hadn't grown up in this space. So we decided 3 years ago to heavily invest in this connected space. So you mentioned you've got Hive. Okay, fantastic. So we now make, okay, all of Hive's connected lighting. If you were to purchase some lamps or some lighting for your Hive system, you would notice it would say on the side, engineered and manufactured by Aurora. So huge kudos for us. We have sold millions of lamps into Hive to the consumer. You've seen the TV campaigns and obviously all of that type of thing promoting their systems. And we make those products for them, okay? And on the back of that, we were obviously able to then look at how we could start to make connected lighting to everybody outside of Hive. But the exciting thing for you guys is understanding this journey, this window of time. Gary and I, we had our career, okay, at a time when lighting and electrical was fairly static, okay? Nothing really changed too much. But in this window that you're in right now, over these next 3 years certainly, and then of course it's going to fast track because more and more people are going to get to understand smart technology. Yeah, you now are lucky, believe it or not, you guys are lucky. You live in this window that once you're qualified, okay, you're in this next phase, this next chapter, and you're right at the beginning of smart. So we recognized that as Aurora, and therefore we went on to develop an awful lot of smart connected devices in the home. So we don't just do lighting, we do sockets, we do door contacts. There's an array of products that we do that associate with sort of, in theory, putting a form of lighting on. But the beauty is if you go back to what you just mentioned about Hive, there's an awful lot of other third-party integrated devices which are now compatible. So the idea is you have one hub on the wall, okay, and then multiple devices from any manufacturer can work off that same one hub. And therefore you can start to absolutely max out on that as these young electricians coming through to the next generation, because my generation would be scared of connecting up devices. Even though, as you well know, to just find a device, pairing it up on your phone is the easiest thing in the world to do, because you've done it, you know, since young, just connecting up your local, I don't know, your Bluetooth speaker or something. Yeah, you just find it so naturally easy. It's no different to any of these third-party devices. It's exactly the same process, yeah? But our generation would be scared of that. You can tap into that, yeah? That's something which you can absolutely make a business out of going forward. And I'm sure you will as time goes on, okay? So, yeah, so along the way now, we've absolutely built this whole range of sort of the connected world for the domestic home. But in addition to that, what we've also done is, and I'd welcome any of you, Gary and your team, welcome any of you to sort of maybe, if you want to come down to our facilities. We've got 2 places, one in Hertfordshire and one in Swindon. And you can see it on our website too. But we've moved on now to the commercial world, okay? Now, what do I mean by that? Yeah, imagine now moving away from a traditional light fitting, which it is, but then integrating software now into that hardware. Hardware being the light fitting, software being the technology, all right? So what we're now doing is we're building sensors now inside all types of luminaires, yeah, particularly commercial, for buildings, and we are monitoring and taking data back through our own cloud, yeah, and accessing that data to try and put some value to that in an organization. So I'm going to make this simple for you to understand, all right? Imagine a 20-story building, all right? And that building could be any big corporate building. Let's call it, I don't know, Norwich Union, all right? And this building decides that they're pregnant for space. They're employing 500 people in this building across 20 floors. They've got no idea how they're going to, you know, expand this business at the moment. They're growing organically. They need to employ another 200 people. They're one of the biggest employers in Norwich, for example, and therefore they need a new building because they cannot get any more people into this building. The purpose of what we're doing is that through these sensors, we'll go in and we'll network up a particular section of that building, all right? And we'll do a lot of due diligence, and we'll walk around for over 7 days, different times of the day, and we will monitor to see if the rooms are being used wisely, okay? Then what we do is we network up the lights, all the little sensors inside, okay, shine down and provide a heat map, You've all seen heat maps before, yeah? Little hot spots, okay? And it'll show you, or the CEO or the MD or the chairman of these organizations, it'll show them where rooms are being used and where rooms are not being used, yeah, throughout the day, yeah? And the idea is you present that back to then say to them, for example, I reckon there's 10% of this building that if you just move some internal walls around, which is the cheapest bit to do rather than moving an entire building, yeah, you can maximize space, yeah? So my point is that no one would have thought, 10 years ago that lighting could start to present an opportunity to a company like Norwich Union, okay, the opportunity to say, you do not need to move this building. We can prove to you, okay, that there's 10% or 20% of this building that's not being utilized properly, yeah? And therefore, the cost of moving can be saved just by changing some internals around, moving departments between floors, maximizing space, and that all comes from a lighting network. That's the power of this industry. And I'm only talking about lighting because lighting is obviously very much a passion of mine, yeah? But the electrical industry is moving heavily into this connected space now, okay? Regardless of product. Smoke is a big one now. Your fuse boards are a big one now, you know? All of these types of things. Do you guys all know what the AEF treble Ds are? You heard of them yet? No, the arc fault detectors. So, there's lots of new 18th edition regs coming in now, okay, which again are good revenue opportunities for you guys with changes that have got to be made. And I think that was the message that Gary wanted me to give you personally today as to sort of my own career, how I've gone from where you guys were to where we sit today as a business, yeah, and the learning pattern along the way, yeah, what you can all gain from that. Yeah, and I do hope that that's been useful to you. So thanks very much. Cheers.